Today, we're honored to have Sergeant Kristina Wilhelm from the Roanoke County Police Department joining us, as well as her remarkable partner, Ghost, who, if you're watching our YouTube video, you might see in the background hanging out on the couch being a very good boy. She and Ghost were featured in our March-April issue, where readers learned more about the important work they do for our community within the police departments. Trained in explosives and patrol, Sergeant Wilhelm brings a wealth of experience and insight into the world of canine police work. Welcome to the show, Ghost and Sergeant Wilhelm. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so I'm so curious about your background. And so you mentioned hunting dogs in the article, how you grew up with those. And so how was it that you came to join the police department? First of all, before we even get into that canine part.
Well, I stayed for the most part local. Went to Ferrum College. And it was there that I interacted with the police department there and actually was present for a demo, got to get in the bite suit and everything, and I was pretty much hooked.
Was that the bug? You just,
yeah.
You got bitten?
Yeah.
Never went away. And so that's super interesting as far as, your experiences that you've had. That's something that not a lot of people can really, say that they've experienced.
Yeah, it was definitely, eye-opening to see what the dogs are capable of. And then, I already love dogs, like, a lot of people do. And then to see that, they can do even more and be helpful in, the police department, fire departments, and, all around.
Right. And it's incredible. We were talking just before we got started how Ghost can jump 8 feet in the air. Like, I can't wait to dig into more about his skills because that's pretty incredible. You see the videos on, like, TikTok and Instagram, but to, like, see it in real life, I bet is a whole nother
If there's something there he wants or a person, then yes.
So criminals better watch out. And so in thinking about your training process for canines, how did you and Ghost, how do you prepare for explosive patrol duties? That seems like a really big, scary word, but you seem very stoic in the face of that.
In police work, there's mainly 3 disciplines, and that's narcotics, explosives, and then patrol. Here in the Valley, we have all 3 of those available within our canine units. And, basically, it's not that we're training the dogs to find, that, and that's like their reward. They do everything for a reward, and which is usually a toy in their case. And that's why they do everything they do, just like your pets at home. They'll do stuff for treats. The dogs, we train them on the odor of explosives or narcotics. And then, once they give their final response to that alert, then they're paid with a toy. And then that's their happy place.
That's so interesting because it took me a long time to get my little dog Henry to like do a spin or shake a hand. Like the fact that he's over here, ready to tackle, bad guys and take care of explosives. That's a pretty big deal.
Well, I mean, these dogs are trained, they're working dogs and they want to have a job. So that's...
Yeah, my terrier wants to lay in a sunspot all day and not do any of that, so... you mentioned in the article your previous canine partner, Bodie, and I want to talk a little bit about him because I think that this is so interesting. You had a really successful career with him, narcotics patrol dog. He's an excellent tracker. I'm curious about maybe a memorable moment or experience that you guys were able to share together in the past.
Like you touched on, Bodie was a very good tracker, and we actually located several missing people.
Wow.
And within, bad guys, eventually, even if they get away, we're going to find them eventually. With missing kids, whether it be elderly, autistic, anything like that, dementia patients, we're usually on a time clock. And, the faster we can find them is definitely crucial, especially depending on the weather. So being able to have their resources of their nose is... now we have drones and we have Project Lifesaver and all that, but the dogs just add that extra element. And, a lot of times we'll go off a scent article like the person's hairbrush or something else if it's available. And that lets them zone in on being able to track that person specifically.
Stuff you only see on TV. Like, that's crazy to me. That's real. Like, yes. They're really working hard.
I mean, got a missing kid, you go get their pillowcase off their pillow or something.
Man. And I think that's a good point you raised. This isn't just about chasing down a criminal. This is helping the vulnerable who might be lost or otherwise out there, in the public, unsure of where to go or what to do.
Right.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And so, again, we're talking about Bodie. He's retired now.
Yes.
And so we're hanging out with Ghost back here. You're such a good boy. Oh my goodness. And so thinking about that transition that had to be made, and there's a very funny little thing in the feature that I want to touch on about Bodie's a little commanding of his little brother every once in a while.
He is not a fan because he is jealous that Ghost gets to go to work and he does not, because he will still go out the door and circle the police car wanting to get in.
Yeah, and that's so sweet. Because how old is he now?
He's 12.
Wow,
He
okay.
just turned 12 in February.
That's so great. But that's so funny that that's his work ethic. Like, he wants to go to work. He doesn't understand that he's retired. A lot of us are really bad at retirement, but apparently he's really bad at it.
He would rather go sit in the car than do anything.
That is so funny that he's just determined to work
But
with you.
that was his job.
Right.
That's what he did.
Well, and I think that's really interesting in terms of, again, you see these dogs in their vests, right? And you think it's just a dog. Like, he's an officer of the law. Like, he's there to help you and be your partner. That's really important. Yeah, that's really cool. And so in thinking about that transition, how does Ghost feel about Bodie trying to tell him what to do?
He actually doesn't care. He's just like, whatever, dude.
Well, and that's curious
But
too.
I mean, he also realizes, and you can definitely see that dynamic change the longer I've had him.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I'm not worried about you. I'm going to work. You're not.
Well, and that's curious about personalities, right? How would you describe maybe Bodie's personality versus Ghost's? And Ghost is a little bit younger, obviously, so there's some puppy energy there, maybe.
Bodie was always very easygoing.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny you say that. The dogs usually, you'll see they take on the personality of their handler.
Really?
Yes. And, Bodie, he was go, go, go for patrol, tracking, all that. And then narcotics, he'd be like, okay, here it is. Like, it's just funny to see that. And then Ghost, he's like, oh, we're going to find explosives.
That seems to fit his personality from the couple of minutes we've been together. But that's funny. Do you think it might even be, for example, a reflection of your early state in your career where you're trying to sort of figure out your role in things and how to do, how to operate your role?
It very well could be, narcotics, it used to be marijuana, heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine that they were trained on. And of course now with marijuana...
That's a great question. I would love to talk about that more, actually, because it's such a complicated layer of your job.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry. So I'm going to go off on a tangent. But, let's talk about that for a minute, because are they looking for marijuana anymore?
No.
Okay. Interesting.
So we still have some dogs that are trained on marijuana. However, those dogs we do not run, on traffic stops for free air sniffs or anything like that. And the reason being is, we can't say that, hey, they didn't alert on marijuana.
Right.
But as far as, schools, jails, parcels, in the mail, those things, you're still not supposed to have marijuana in those locations.
Right.
So we do have newly trained canines who they are not trained on marijuana, and we, will go through proofing to make sure that they don't alert to marijuana. And then, that's what I was getting to with explosives or with narcotics. You miss some cocaine. Yes, you don't ever want to do that, but it's not going to blow up.
Yeah.
You miss the explosives and we got problems.
Yes, sort of a big difference there. Yeah, that's fair. And so when he is training to seek for explosives, what does that look like? I remember in the feature there's a wall that they're sort of testing different scents on.
So, usually it's kind of like with your dog at home. If they find something they're interested in, you'll start to see their body language change. A lot of times, especially, he's going along searching. If you give a big head turn and then suddenly he starts zeroing in on an area, that's a clue. And then a lot of times he'll go, and Bodie, he actually used to, especially on tracking, you go to a corner or something and go, and it's like you're peeling the paint off of it. Yeah. Literally is what it says. Like,
because he's trying to get the biggest
you're like,
sniff.
Okay, there's something there. But that's one thing. And then, now before they had these nice vests, you could actually see the way their ribs would move with their breathing.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And that was one of the things we looked for. Stand still.
I love, so Ghost is over here with his toy, just hanging out on our couch. Like, you're being so good. I know. Taking up the whole slate of our couch because he's a big guy. How big was Bodie, or is he about the same size?
Bodie had a deeper chest, but they were actually about the same weight. Ghost, he stays right between 77 and 82.
Okay.
Bodie, he would range from 78 to 83, 84.
I mean, he came at me with full-hearted enthusiasm. I can't imagine seeing him out in the wild coming after me.
Yeah, he's not friendly when he doesn't want to be.
Well,
when he's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I'd like to reiterate that to the viewers and everything, and we do a lot of demos with kids and stuff. And the important thing is, you never know how dogs will react. And we always try to touch on this. They are working dogs. A lot of the canine units, you can't interact with them because they are trained for a purpose.
Right.
And a lot of that's, based on the handler because, it's a liability for them. So, you always ask before you go up and touch a dog or meet a dog because you don't know how they're going to react.
And that should be a general rule of thumb across the board, no matter whose dog it is. Yes.
And that's what we like to touch on, just you never know how a dog will react to anybody, whether it's, a little Chihuahua or...
Right. Well, they might be a little more aggressive than poor Ghost over here. Ghost is just enjoying his toy. Well, that's so great. And that's such a good point because, I mean, do you go to a lot of schools with him, or is that maybe not something he does?
No, we actually do because he is very social. And, I see a need for that in today's police world, especially being able to interact and positive community contacts and relationships. And of course, a lot of people love dogs who don't even like people. So
right. Well, well, and I love that point because you're opening up when you visit kids in schools or in groups and organizations. You're opening up their eyes not just to what you do as a police officer, an individual, but what if they were curious, an aspiring, police officer who wants to graduate high school and work really hard and get in the program? Like, that's an option that maybe they never considered. But I love dogs. I mean, it's like you said, I got into the suit, I got bit, and it was over. I knew that this was what I wanted to do.
Exactly.
So what a neat, concept for them to be able to see. It's not just about patrol work. Very, very important, but there's also other avenues that they can take. Right. Was there ever was this it for you? Like you knew that K-9 was your department?
I went to school for criminal justice, and then love of dogs, so that was always there. But then once I did that, and then being able to see what they do, what they can do, it's just, and I mean, there's also the bond. You get used to you have instant backup basically. Yeah, well,
that's a great seg because that was my next question in terms of this bond between a canine officer and your partner. Like that has to be so different from a human partner. It's just such an incredible experience that you get to have.
Well, I mean, you get used to them being there. You rely on each other. I rely on him to, find whatever it is we're looking for. And also, as in patrol, they're trained in obedience, tracking, building searches, area searches, handler protection, suspect apprehension, all that.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot. That's not a 40-hour week. That's like an 80-hour week for him.
So, I mean, I expect if someone comes after me that I wouldn't even have to give him a command because he knows what to do. Right. And that's what I said, you have instant backup. And you can't say that, riding around in the car, all the other officers by themselves. Right. If they get into something.
Right. Yeah. I actually, it was right before COVID. I did a ride along with Roanoke City with a younger police officer who just kind of recently joined. And it was very eye-opening, for one, to have that experience as a citizen, to see it was a pretty slow, Wednesday morning or whatever it was. There wasn't a whole lot going on and I wasn't real worried. But I put on that vest and I was like, oh my gosh, this is official. I am in a police car riding along, watching him, do his job. And it's pretty amazing what you guys do. And then to add a whole nother component of a canine, I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah. And I mean, he's an officer, but in the grand scheme of things, he's another tool that we utilize, because his nose is far superior.
Yeah. A drone's not going to sniff that out.
I mean, we use the analogy you walk in and you're like, oh, there's pizza. He can smell every single ingredient. Or there's a stew on the easy there's a stew on the stove and they can smell, you're like, oh, it's stew,
Right.
soup, whatever. Well, no, he can smell every single ingredient.
Right.
And that's how we break it down, and that's how good their noses
Yeah,
are.
see, that's kind of wild to me. Just, I mean, you don't really think about the fact that they can see and smell and hear things that just, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to do that. Did you have him as a puppy? Like, how does that start?
He actually replaced another explosives patrol dog that the department had, who we lost to cancer suddenly. And the handler actually picked him and then had him for 6 months. And then Bodie had some health issues, and the other handler was leaving. He asked me to work him.
Wow.
So that's how I ended up getting Ghost.
Wow. Is that is that typical or?
I can't say it's typical because, sometimes there's not a lot of movement in canine because, you're not just signing on for a year or something.
Not some turnover, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we don't train them to work with just anybody,
course.
It's pretty much person specific. So, I mean, we pretty much are in it for the long haul.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned, so he's chewing away on his toy on our couch. I'm curious, because you mentioned he was an outside dog.
Yes.
He's not an inside dog.
No, he stays in his kennel.
I mean, he's a good boy, but he's not necessarily your everyday pet.
No.
That he's not hanging out like my dog is, getting treats just because he wants it. And so I think that's really interesting that he has sort of a very specific lifestyle for his job.
Yes. And I mean, that's important because, if he got everything he wanted, would he do what he needs to do, what he's supposed to do? But I mean, and, they still get love and everything else.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, you still there's a fine line,
Yeah, that's interesting. There's not going to be a lot of cuddle parties hanging out. Yeah, well, that's okay. I'll cuddle with him after. That's okay. That's cool. And so in thinking about, this retirement process for Bodie, considerations that go into well-being post-service. So how does Bodie deal with, again, I know he doesn't deal with retirement very well, but is he still hanging out outside and
He pretty much, he hangs out in the yard. He comes in. He's definitely slowing down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's just been living the dog life.
Yeah.
But, like, he'll take the kids to school sometimes, and he'll just be like, I want to get out of the car.
You can tell he wants to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
That's so funny.
And I'll actually so this vest is a ballistics vest, just like we wear, and stab resistant. And actually, for him, I took the ballistic panels out, and so I'll just let him wear it. And he gets some major swagger in his step.
Does he really?
Yes.
Oh, that's the cutest thing I've ever heard. Sorry, that shouldn't be cute, I know, but like that's adorable.
But I mean, that was him, when he was working, he was like, I'm back.
I love that you give an opportunity just to feel like his old self every once in a while. That's so cool. Well, Ghost, you're being an awfully good boy. I just can't get over how hard you must work every single day. And I'm curious about, what does that work week look for? Like, what's a usual work week look like for you guys? I know today's your off day, and thank you again for coming in on your off day, Ghost. I appreciate it.
I mean, we still, we patrol the road. So, we're not we're in the K9 unit, but we're not in a specialized, have our own schedule or anything.
Right.
We work the road just with the other uniform officers. So we answer calls for crashes, for domestics, frauds. I mean, you name it.
Right. So you're working your job just like everybody else. You just have a special partner with you.
And if we have something where, if we have a bomb threat, or if we have to look for shell casings or a gun, or if, we have to look for a suspect, or we're going to serve a high-risk warrant service, then the dogs, that's when they get to go out and play.
Right. Oh, that's so funny that's when it feels like play. And so again, I mean, in Roanoke County, I mean, I'd like to think you don't get a ton of those, calls all the time, but certainly you have to go to work occasionally on a Fun for Ghost Day. But
and I mean, that's just it. The city and the county both have several dogs in the K9 units, and we all work and train together. But we also assist other jurisdictions. If city needs a dog and they don't have one, a lot of times we're available. But we also go to other jurisdictions and everything whenever the need arises, especially for a certain discipline.
I was curious about that because maybe the other departments in other areas are smaller and don't necessarily have a K9 or a big backup plan to take care of that. So that's really interesting that you kind of travel a little bit. Well, Ghost, where do you guys, so the last question I really have for you guys is more fun. So I don't know if Ghost is going to be able to answer it because it's not about work, but where are you guys going when in your free time? Today's your off day. What does that look like for you guys?
Depends on the day.
Yeah.
Today's just kind of a chill day. We knew we had something in the middle of the day. Ghost is a big fan of Explore Park.
Okay.
And,
understandably,
they've expanded a lot of stuff out there during different times of the year, so that's great.
Does he go for, does he love to chase after the squirrels and the birds, or is that, not interesting to him?
He would probably like to, but we're not doing that.
That's fair. Yeah, fair enough.
Now, we have a lot of good places around here.
Mm-hmm.
Probably our most favorite lately is Pokey Joe's in Vinton.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I can't imagine you're eating any barbecue, but still.
He's like, I totally would.
Yeah, if you just let me at it, I'll take it.
No, but it just depends on, where we're working and everything.
Yeah.
Where we go.
No, that's really cool. Well, what do you think? It's sort of a cliche question, but what is your favorite part about doing the job that you do? Because it's a really incredible, hard job.
Right. You learn to read the dog and how they react and everything. And then, there's times where you're like, he was tracking. Were we on the right track? And a lot of times you don't know unless you find the person.
Sure.
Or, find out information later.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always that unknown, and it's basically this need to get better because you want to be able to be utilized to the best of your ability.
Mm-hmm.
And the more successful you are, the more you're going to get called for that stuff. So I always thought that was pretty cool as far as, working at it to where you were really confident and then, having those finds and stuff where you did find people, and then it just, you're like, it's like euphoric because that's what you work for.
Yeah. And there's really no cap to that. It seems like you're always evolving. You're always trying to be better than you were the day before. Exactly. You're always trying to understand Ghost and what he needs to have, follow me or whatever needs to happen. Yeah. Well, yes. That was him giving his 2 cents on the microphone there. He's being so great. Well, gosh, thank you again so much for being part of our feature. It was so exciting. I went to our writer last year and I said, I really want to write about Canine Unit. I think that what they do is so interesting and something that, I don't know if they necessarily get highlighted enough. I'm a dog person, so I think you'll never get highlighted enough because I want to know more about the hard work that they do. I was telling you earlier, my sister, she's a retired fire captain now down in Florida, and she was trying to train labs to be part of the fire department for part of the rescue. And one of them worked out and the other one was like, no, I'm just going to hang by the pool. I'm good. And she had them as puppies. And then because of, the dog's like, no, I'm okay. I don't need to work. They ended up becoming sort of household pet, very spoiled household pets.
And then, it takes it. You put a lot in them, but they also got to have the drive and work ethic too.
Yeah.
I just wanted to touch on, if you see canine units in the valley, you'll see most all of them wearing these vests. Mm-hmm. And these vests are rated exactly like ours. And we actually had a city canine that was stabbed by a suspect.
Wow. And
he came out completely unscathed, and it was very near the edge. But Spike's Canine Fund, who is actually out of Virginia, in Virginia Beach, Norfolk area, they actually donated us these vests. They are fit specifically for each dog.
Wow, tailored to them.
Yes.
That's interesting.
They're made in Canada. Canine Storm actually makes the vest. But Spike's Canine Fund, they're a nonprofit organization. The founder was a Navy SEAL, and dogs actually saved his life.
Wow.
So he wanted to give back to the dogs, and so all of our dogs are fortunate to have these life-saving vests. And then, of course, they also help us out and put on trainings across the country for police departments, canine units, as far as other canine-related stuff as well. Man, we're really fortunate to have people who think of things like that, right? Because you want him to be protected with you, too. I think that's really, really interesting. And I'm curious, so does it hurt to be in the bite suit? Sometimes they get you really good, and it's not a fake scream you give. I'm just thinking about, I think that'd be really fun, and then I think about the bruises that would be on my arm afterwards. That might not be so fun. But see, the dogs, they really enjoy it, especially if they get in there and, they can feel you moving around in a suit. But especially you get somebody, it's like a squeaky toy. It's like the ultimate squeaky toy with the person. And that's how we look at it as far as, training them.
I'm dying laughing. I'm sorry. All I can think about is the human being is the giant squeaky toy and the dog's having a great time.
But I mean, that's their reward.
I find that so interesting. My dog is super treat motivated, like he doesn't need, he loves the toy, but he wants the treat.
Right.
So I find it fascinating that, I don't know. Do you think it's his breed? Or, it sounds like that's really across the board in terms of the work ethic. They're looking for the toy as the reward.
Yeah, because, we utilize German Shepherds, Belgian Malinois, Dutch Shepherds. We've had some other breeds throughout the years. Those are pretty much the three main ones.
Yeah,
that
you don't want
see.
My 20-pound terrier mix? No, he's not going to do it for you?
They would probably be really good in the airport, maybe.
Ankle biters.
But, that's just they're working dogs, and so a lot of times that's what we utilize and for their abilities, their bite pressure, their ability to train, speed, all that, and so that's just what they're used to. That's what they're trained on.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It's sort of like when you adopt a shepherd and you're wondering why they keep trying to herd you. Like, what is happening here? That's what they were bred to do. He's trying to go to work, man.
They want a job.
Yeah. That is so cool. Well, thank you again, Sergeant Wilhelm and Ghost. Oh my gosh, who's being so good on our couch. I can't wait for you guys to see him in the video. But thank you for being not just in the podcast today, but for our feature and sharing just a little bit of insight into what you do. It's really, really incredible work. Thank you for helping the community and our citizens.
Well, we are very appreciative. For the most part, we usually have the respect and appreciativeness of our community, and for that speaks volumes. So
yeah, well, you should be so proud of the work you do, and Ghost should be too. He's over here chewing, in case you can't hear his little squeaky toy.
He's bored.
He's bored. Oh my goodness, he looks like he's having a great time. Ugh, I just want to squeeze him, and I know that's not really a thing, but I love him so much already. You're such a good dog. Well, thank you again so much for being on the podcast today.
Problem.
We really appreciate your time. Listeners, you can learn more about the incredible work of Kristina Wilhelm and her canine officer, Ghost, in our community and the rest of the work that they do in our March-April feature, as well as pet-friendly businesses, great advice from local pet experts, and so much more in our latest issue on newsstands now, or you can check out more at theroanoker.com.